Yeah, and to 4 o'clock, the spot where we seem to be talking about writers and books. Anna Davis is from Curtis Brown Creative. Abir Mukherjee probably hopefully needs no introduction. He's the writer of the great Sam Wyndham series, of which the latest, Death in the East, was out. Was it at the end of last year in hardback? Was it? When? It
was, yeah. The hardback came out last November, and today I got my hands on the first copy of the paperback.
Oh my God!
It's supposed to come out, but it's been pushed for a couple of months. But yeah, that's it. No one's seen this yet, so it's an exclusive.
Timing.
There you go.
Brilliant. How do you feel when you open it up and you see it?
I think, God, who wrote that? I really love the cover. It's bizarre. 4 books. Yeah. 4 books. Man, that's scary. You'd think people would have learnt their lesson by now, but
it's a big achievement, isn't it? I mean, like, one book is an amazing achievement, and then you've got to do it again.
Yes, and again and again and again. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, that's really cool. But the paperback has been put back then, is it?
Yes, I think it's coming out now in June. I should know this. I'm rubbish. I think it's coming out in June now, assuming we're let out by then. But it was supposed to come out this week, I think.
Oh, okay. I've just realised I put a large bit of paper with all my questions to you lot over the screen where all the comments are coming up. I've been doing this. This is program number 21, I think, so I should be knowing what I'm doing now.
Lots of people commenting that they're having a cup of tea, as are we.
Good, yeah. Abir's got his cup of tea as well.
I wish I had my cup. I've got.
Oh, he's frozen again. Anyway, while he's unfreezing, it's like, you know, he's doing a bit of. But let's talk about Curtis Brown Creative. First, you need to explain what Curtis Brown Creative actually is.
So we are a creative writing school which is affiliated to the Curtis Brown Literary Agency, and actually also to Convent and Walsh Literary Agency. We're part of the same group of companies. And I started it up back in 2011 just because I thought that we were in a really great position to run creative writing courses that could be incredibly practical and that could really help people to focus on their writing goals, and for people who have talent and publishing potential to potentially really get there. And I had previously taught in a university context, which I think, you know, I don't want to knock the universities, but I think that what we offer is something different. And it's all gone really well. We've had, in the years since, we're running a greater variety of courses, and we run courses both in our London offices, which are obviously postponed at the moment, and online, and we have lots going on online at the moment. And we've had over 90 students get publishing deals with major publishers now. So some of whom you would have heard of, and some, you know,
great books come off the back of the course. I mean, really amazing. But, you know, this is terrible for us. There's all this competition of really talented writers who know what they're doing.
Yeah, well, there's lots of, I mean, and I know that this is lots of people who watch this would be people who are into crime fiction, and we've had lots of crime fiction authors, probably the best known of which would be Jane Harper, who came out of our course. But also lots of people like Alice Clark Platts and Heidi Perks and Joe Jakeman, and many more actually. So yeah, very much around on the crime scene. And I mean, I suppose the thing that people might particularly want to know about at the moment is the stuff that we're doing during lockdown. So all of our physical courses got postponed, and my little team, they're only a tiny little team, are obviously all working from home at the moment. And we just thought we needed to, we were already running loads of online courses, but that we needed to run lots more online courses and writing services, and different ones that would connect well with where people are at the moment. And I suppose the one that I most want to tell people about here is that we're doing this free writing workout each week at the moment. So, and we've signed up over 6,000 people so far. So yeah, it's something like 6,200 or something now. So, and basically what we're doing for that, every week, one of us, I mean, I am a novelist as well. I'm not writing at the moment, but I've published 5 novels, and I wrote the first 3. And then at the moment, I'm passing the baton to some authors who work with us quite a bit. So over the next few weeks, there'll be some other authors who are writing the workouts. And the workouts they're like a writing lesson of about sort of 1,500 words or so, lots of on a different topic each week, lots of kind of tips and writing advice. Usually focused on, I mean, we try not to focus it too much on specifically novels, because actually many people who join might be wanting to write for the first time, possibly with a sort of isolation journal or writing short stories. So we're trying to choose topics that are relevant in different kinds of writing and just give people some inspiration and some help to get going and actually sort of put pen to paper. And each week we set a writing exercise as well. So if people sign up, they will get from us a writing lesson each week and a writing exercise to do. And then obviously if they want to do other stuff with us, we've got lots of courses going on. We have a write from home program as well, which essentially is that we are discounting quite a lot of our courses and adding in extra services like video call tutorials that you can get one-to-one, because there are certain things that we can do while in lockdown that we can't normally. You know, some of the literary agents who I work with have time to come and give tutorials, and some of the writers who perhaps, you know, we're expecting to have a book published about now have a bit of time and are doing extra bits and pieces with us. So we're trying to bring that all together in this kind of write from home program. But yeah, anyone who wants to sign up for the workouts or to look at any of the other stuff, it's all on www.curtisbrowncreative.co.uk, and you can check it all out there. I just thought I'd get that in now.
The URL is
talking in a more relaxed way. Yeah.
So I just want to quickly say hello to lots of people who've come along. Hi, Joy Kluver. I don't know if she has made it actually. Fiona McLeod, Sven. Hi, Sven. He's come, I think, pretty much every day we've done this. Susan Baines, welcome. Pippa, hi again. Andy Hill, Timea, Nick Quantrill, lovely to see you. James, Alexandra, Christina, and Sergit.
Christina's one of our former students, I've spotted.
That's right, saying hello from the second and fourth cohort. And Mick Finley, bless. Susan.
I should say hello to Sergit. Hi, Sergit.
Exactly. It's very nice. You see, this is what I like about it. It gives me the chance to peek into your rooms and get out of my house. But also say hello to lots of other people as well. No, it's really brilliant. And it's a great course. And I think it's really fantastic that you can sort of open the doors at the moment. Because what's the great thing about now is everybody's thinking really hard about the other ways we can do stuff, isn't it? It's just like, how do we redesign our life to fit into the fact that we're all indoors and can only really contact each other electronically?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think that's where we're lucky to already be working online, to have a sort of dedicated platform where students can come and work with us. And we're starting to experiment a lot more with Zoom webinars and things as well, which is not something we particularly did before, but going to get some of that in. Everyone's on the Zoom webinars though, aren't they? It's a commonplace thing suddenly. So.
It's very good to see Nick Quantrill with a nice nice comment there. Hi, Nick. Abir, I want to talk about Sam Wyndham, your central character. Well, I think Sam Wyndham's an amazing achievement because you have to make a character who's of his time. And in 2020, it's a bit of an uncomfortable time looking back 100 years ago to look at some of the sort of Anglo-Saxon attitudes that Sam Wyndham has, but you haven't airbrushed them. He's a man who can be of his time, and yet we're on his side. How do you pull that off?
Well, firstly, I don't know if it's an achievement to create an opium addicted manic depressive, but yeah, I mean, coming from Glasgow, I have an advantage creating characters like that. Going back to your point about Sam and our attitudes to empire these days, do you know what? Even at the time, you know, it was a terrible time. It's a time that we gloss over, but even then, there were good people. And what I often get from India is people saying, you know what, it's quite refreshing to read something about that period where you're not apologizing. You know, I think they see, if I was to be a white writer and I was writing this, I would probably apologize a lot more than I feel I need to. And I think that a lot of people find quite different. Especially in India, people say to me, oh, you're very harsh to the Scots in your books, aren't you? That's in India, people say that. And I go to Scotland and people say, you're very harsh to the Indians, aren't you? And the fact is, for me, it's just therapy, because I make fun of the people that I love the most, and those are Scots, and they are, you know, Bengalis, which Bengal is the part of India that my family's from, and with So really, for me, it's therapy. So it doesn't feel like I'm doing anything that doesn't come naturally.
Okay, that's interesting, because I mean, you know, the history of you know, putting crime fiction in colonial past, people's impulse is often to kind of soften it and to make it kind of cozier than it was, because that makes it acceptable. You managed to sort of sideskip that.
Well, it was also born of anger, to be honest. You know, you grow up here, and you know, we weren't taught British history in the 20s or 30s. We learnt more about German history when I was at school. You know, and I would go to school and I would learn something, and I'd come home and I would tell my dad, and he'd be like, "Very good. It's not right. It's wrong." And half the time he was right, and half the time the school was right. And what I learned very early on, and I think if you come from a different background from the mainstream, you pick this up very quickly, which is that there are always two sides to every story. You realize that, you know, we are only told one side of our history. I think in Britain, we always think we're on the side of the angels. We believe that we're always on the right side. And yet our history, when you look at it, couldn't be further from the truth. Yeah. And so I really wanted to highlight the history. At the same time, I didn't want to take the other approach, which is that, oh, all British people are evil and they engineered this takeover of, you know, wonderful, peaceful India. That's not the case. And sitting between both cultures, it's easier for me to do that than, say, somebody who comes from a purely British background or a purely Indian background. And I like to bring people.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, you know, doing the research, I mean, two things I want to say. I mean, one is I think this is why crime fiction is the most, why it's sort of beating everything else culturally at the moment, because it tells a story, but actually that's kind of only part of what it's doing. We're doing some, it's become, in the last sort of 20, 30 years, it's become this genre which actually, the detectives aren't so much investigating the death as they're investigating something about the whole society that is going on in, aren't they?
It's the crime novel as a medium for social commentary. And you know, I grew up in that tradition. I think a lot of tartan noir has its roots in this crime novel as social commentary, and that goes back to William McIlvanney and Laidlaw. But I grew up with, you know, Val McDermid, Ian Rankin, Philip Kerr, all writing using a story, using the crime novel, not only to tell a wonderful story, but to examine either history or current social issues. And so. Yeah, so when I came to write, I didn't want to write a history book because I don't really have the patience for it. I like making stuff up as well rather than researching. But also I wanted people to read it, and more people read crime than anything else. Thankfully.
Yeah, I love this comment from Sven. German history is very difficult to learn. He's in from Hamburg, so I think you're right there.
Well, Sven,
but also,
you're taught it, Sven. You know, we don't even get taught British history. We only get taught the nice parts of British history.
About 70 times, you know. But the Death in the East, there's a kind of double play in the East there, because it's not necessarily all the East that we assume from your titles, is it?
No, it's not. This book is quite a funny book. I'm going to give it one more plug. No more after this. There you are, Death in the East, new cover. Yeah. When I started writing this book, I wanted to write a locked room mystery because I've never written one before. And oh wow, that's clever. That wasn't me. That was it?
Wow. Yeah, you get hit by the
I'm gonna have to hire you as PR. Yeah, so when I started, I wanted to write a locked room mystery. You know, where a body's found in a room, the doors and windows are locked. How was the murder committed? It just took me 5 years to actually come up with a plot that I thought worked and that hadn't been done. So it really started off as my homage to Agatha Christie. But as I was writing, you know, this was 2017, 2018, post-Brexit vote, you know, the issues around immigration and integration and what it meant to be British were up in the news. I was very, like a lot of people, I was very sort of depressed by what we were seeing. And so I needed to comment on that. And it struck me that everything that we're saying about, you know, Muslims today and the lack of integration, people were saying 100 years ago about the Jews. And, you know, and the same, I used to live in East London until about 6 months ago. And in that part of town, it's always welcomed waves and waves of immigrants. And what surprised me was that, you know, the streets that are now occupied by Bangladeshi Muslims 100 years ago were occupied by, you know, Eastern European Jews fleeing persecution. And the press reacted in exactly the same words. You know, you can take a passage from a tabloid newspaper of 1900, replace the word Jew with Muslim, and run it today. And that was both depressing, but it was also quite, it was also a source of optimism, because the fact is today, barring the aberration of the, you know, Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party for a while, the fact is the Jews are completely integrated and they're a British success story. In the same way that my community, which are, you know, Hindu Bengalis who came here in the 60s, they came with qualifications. They didn't come with money, but they came with qualifications, and they came as middle class. And our story of integration is also one which is a great success story. The same is going to happen with these other communities that come, because the fact is Britain is a very tolerant country, and we forget that. And I really wanted to highlight that in the book. So half of the book is set in East London in 1905. We see Sam's first case. And the rest of it is set in 1922, when Sam is recovering. He's gone to an ashram for rehabilitation from opium addiction, and he sees a ghost from his past, back from those days in East London. But again, what I really wanted to do is highlight these points while killing people, which is, you know, very important.
Absolutely. Anna, when you're teaching writing and you're doing it, and as a writer yourself, I was just wondering how much of this stuff that, I mean, like, how do you teach that sort of bit of writing? I mean, you can teach the mechanics, you can teach that, but actually that kind of, it's like the thematic stuff, the big stuff. Is that harder to get across?
Well, I mean, I just don't think I would try to tell anyone what themes they should be writing about, really. I just don't think that's something I would try to do. I mean, I think that what we would try to do is to listen to what people want to write and what they want to explore, and then try and help them to do that in ways that you know, that generally help them. I mean, I think that it's really interesting. We have some people who come to us who've done a lot of writing before and a lot of writing courses before, and then we have other people who've come to us who do really interesting things in their lives, and are really bright, articulate people, but who haven't tried to turn that into fiction. And sometimes I love working with those people sometimes, because it's all there and they just need to learn a few tricks to get it out. And sometimes they're just, I don't know, there'll be something which to someone who writes seems really obvious, like they've got a story to tell and they're slavishly working their way through from the beginning of somebody's life right the way through to the end. And you just sort of say to them, you know, you don't have to tell the whole life, or, you know, you don't have to work this chronologically. You know, we could approach it in a different way. And it's kind of weird that sometimes they'll just go, oh, really? Can I do that? And it's kind of, it sounds really obvious, but sometimes you have these amazing revelations where something that feels to me like it's really simple just lands on someone and opens up a fictional world in a whole different way. So yeah, you know, I think people usually know what they want to write about, and then you just have to try and like help them to get there, really.
Did you ever have that sort of revelatory moment, Abir, in terms of your own writing, about figuring out that it was, you know, did a light bulb come on at any time?
Absolutely. I mean, I fall into, well, I wouldn't say I fall into quite the second category of somebody who's had an interesting life and is any good, but essentially I hadn't come to writing. I didn't write anything till I was 40. I was an accountant, and I wanted to see if there was more to life than accountancy. Turns out there is. So my first book, A Rising Man, I only wrote about 10,000 words, and I saw a competition in the Telegraph. And they just asked for the first 5,000 words, which was great because I'm lazy, didn't have to do very much. I sent it away, and, you know, in the end it won and it was published. But for me, the learning experience, I learned from my first editor between that first draft and the second draft of my novel. And when Anna says, you know, for me it was, I felt I had to write every step along the way. He opened the door, he stepped down, he walked down, and my editor points out, nobody needs that. I think you can let your reader infer that they're going to walk down. So that was quite a revelatory moment. Another was that you can say more with less. You don't have to describe every aspect of a room, from its dimensions to its furniture. You can say as much by saying, you know, the room was like a monk's cell, but without the proximity to God. That's a much better way of describing a small room.
That's lovely.
You know, the dimensions in a bed and whatever. And so I learned to write from my first editor, a woman called Alison Hennessy.
See, I'm beginning to hate you even more now, Abir, because I think so. That was your first project. You set out, you wrote 10,000 words. You got some traction with that, and then you got an amazing first novel out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of, how should I put this? I mean, I'd tried to write stuff in the past. So I'd start writing and I'd write, 2,000, 3,000 words. And then I'd make the mistake of reading it and thinking, this is awful. And I would just put it in a drawer. And I think a lot of people are like that. And you've got lives, everyone's got lives and kids and work. And it's very difficult. And I'm not one of these people. I am a huge admirer of people who can write a whole novel without a guarantee at the end of the day that it will ever be published. I'm not sure I could have done that if I didn't win that competition. I don't know if I would have continued past those 10,000 words would still be in a drawer today, most probably, and I'd still be a sad accountant.
Oh, thank God you won the competition. I've spotted another one of our students, actually, Sylvia, who's a former student of ours as well. But yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting the things that the doors that do open up. I mean, what you said about having worked as an accountant, actually, there's one of our students whose book has just come out during lockdown, actually. I mean, I think that's really difficult to get all the way to your first ever publication date and have it happen in lockdown. But so her name's Nikki Smith, and her novel is called All in Her Head, which, and it's a sort of a thriller, sort of domestic thriller. And Nikki was an accountant and had never sort of had it in her mind that she wanted to write something and had never got round to doing it. And then apparently, shamelessly plugging again, but her partner bought her a gift voucher for one of our short online courses. We have these courses that are just 6 weeks long that you can sign up for, which, at a sort of quite affordable level, which anyone can do just to sort of test the waters a bit, really. And there are 3 novel writing courses that follow sequentially like that. And she had to go at one, and then she started working on this novel there, and then she did another one. And then she applied for one of our longer courses, which are kind of more selective entry. You just have 15 people, and we choose the strongest 15 applicants and then work really intensively with them. And she got onto that course and then got picked up by Sophie Lambert, who's a wonderful literary agent who we work with. And they sold her to Orion. And it's, for me, that's one of the nicest stories that we've had, because she's literally come the whole way with us, going through our various sort of courses and then getting immediately picked up. And now her book's out there, and she's a wonderful woman and very supportive of other writers as well. She's reading a lot and interacting a lot with, how there's a lot of writers on Twitter, particularly, I think, giving each other kind of support on there. And so she goes on there. So look out for Nikki Smith anyway, former accountant.
Accountants have the best stories. That's what you've got to realise. So
I guess they do, actually. I guess they do. Well, that goes back to questions. I've been trying to keep up with the questions. I've got a lot of questions, so I've got to go through some. But one of them was, would you ever consider writing anything contemporary? I mean, presumably as an accountant, you must come off some pretty juicy crime stories.
There's a couple of things. Firstly, I should say, yeah, I'm finishing writing book 5 right now in the series, but the next book after that, I am planning to write a contemporary thriller, and I've got the beginnings of that sketched out. So I'm thinking the day after I hand in book 5, I'm going to show my editor this idea that I've got for something a wee bit different, because I think I do want to take a wee bit of a break from the series, and I want to write something much more contemporary, probably US based, because I fancy a research trip. I mean, a research trip, not a holiday, but yeah, hopefully quite soon.
I think it's great breaking out of the series as well. I think it's a really necessary thing to do, partly for your own sanity, but also because it gives people a chance to talk about you again, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? They can see you from a different perspective. Well,
you know what? I would write this, I think, under a white pen name.
Oh,
very, middle of the road, Anglo-Saxon name.
William Shaw.
I bet your publisher will talk you out of that one.
Well, I've mentioned it, and there has been some sort of yes. I want to write it under a different name, because I think there is still a part of the market that is put off by a funny sounding name.
That's really sad, though.
It is what it is. It's a fact of life, and I say that having done a wee bit of research into it. A friend of mine who is he's very, very successful as a self-published writer, in the sense that he sells through Amazon. But he treats it as an analytics business. So he employs people out in Romania to crunch data. He has designers, and he has a huge database of people, and he will send out stuff to test the waters. So one of the things we did was we came up with a blurb, which was a paragraph or two for a book, and we put it out under 20 different names, ranging from, you know, the most American name you can think of to, you know, Mohammed Sadiq. And Mohammed Sadiq got less than 1% of the click-through that Dana somebody or other got through with the same blurb. And that just might be, you know, the target audience that, you know, the database that was going for. But I do think that there is a segment of the readership out there would just, you know, there's a segment of the readership out there that won't read a book by a woman. And we all know that. Similarly, I think there's a segment of the readership out there that is put off by a strange sounding name. So I just want to test that, really.
As I was able to misspell it twice when I was doing the program, I had to say, no, it's not how you spell my name. I was just dying in the hole of
I wouldn't worry about it.
It's true. And also, I think that sounds amazing research. I think you should probably, I think that should be an article in the bookseller or anything, because I think everybody just out there is the kind of problem.
Did you include, so you included both women's and men's names in there as well?
Yeah, we did a mix of men and women. Do you know what? I can't remember how the rest of them, the best one was called Dana, which I think was a sort of unisex name. You point out that the target or the database was Americans and British people, so it wasn't, you know, that. But that's the core of the market, really, when we write in English anyway, I suppose. So so yeah, it was quite interesting. It was quite eye-opening when we did that. But if you actually think about it, I'll give you another retest. Go into your once the lockdown finishes, go into your supermarket, your local supermarket, whatever it will be, and you see how many books you will find by, you know, non-white, non-mainstream authors. I know, and it's not the question. It's not that supermarkets are being racist. It's that supermarkets only stock a range of books, a limited number of books that they know they can shift in volume. So if their audience were buying these books, they would stock them.
Well, it's also an ultra-conservative mechanism. Like all book selling is a type of conservatism, really, because you're kind of trying to guess what people will read, and each time that makes you a little bit more conservative. And the thing that I always tell people about supermarkets that they don't really realize is that nobody buying books for supermarkets ever looks at what's inside them. They're sold entirely on the cover, which is why we're always, as writers, our covers are always being changed at the last minute to try and get into the supermarkets. And I think people are shocked by that, but why else would you? I mean, that from the supermarket's point of view, that's exactly what makes people pick them up. You know? Absolutely, and it's not an issue with the supermarket. It's, as you say, it's the segment of the market that maybe buys their books in supermarkets that are looking for a certain sort of read, and they know with certain authors or certain covers that they will get what they expect. I should point out that people like I wouldn't have a career if it wasn't for Waterstones. Waterstones have been immensely supportive, to the extent that, you know, the covers are designed and then, you know, given to Waterstones for agreement before they come out. So I'm the new Kenny Dalglish. I'm sorry. I'll try and speak. I'm not going to start anything.
Sorry, Andy. I will speak more like an actor.
I think the kind of common perception that that people prefer to read books by men is changing now, though. I sort of think that there are, I mean, what I see all the time at work, both in the creative writing school and more broadly in the agency, more and more writers are women proportionately, I think, and more of the writers who are, you know, in the kind of charts are women, and more readers are women, and probably particularly in crime, actually. I think there's probably, you know, a vast majority of readers are women. And I just think it's interesting. I mean, I don't know, it's not, you know, it in a way it's nice to see that balance tipping back, but I hope it doesn't tip too far the other way. I mean, I think it's, you know, we need to have space for different voices, you know.
I think you're right, but I don't think we're anywhere near sort of equality there for women yet. I know that in terms of book numbers and readership, yes, definitely. But if you look at awards, they still seem to be skewed. I don't know what the reasons are. There's probably subconscious bias there, but there's certainly we're nowhere near tipping point. I wouldn't have thought.
No. I'm hanging on particularly about the CWA awards because, you know, if you look at both of them, I think if you look 17 or 18 of the last 20 Silver and Dagger things, that's the last 10 years, they're men. And, you know, that's bonkers in this age when women outsell men and women produce, you know, arguably finer things. And I'm, you know, it must be tough actually, because every time Abir you talk in the context of British book writing, it comes round to discussing sort of these issues. But it is a really fascinating one, isn't it? And I do think, actually, one of the best talks I went to was seeing Mary Hannah talk about her journey to publication, trying to write books about a lesbian detective. And people kept saying, oh, I love this is brilliant, I'd love to publish it, but it wouldn't sell. And there's always that little, you know, it's a very, very risk-averse market all the time. And so people who think they're doing good things very often don't push it that much further. Anyway.
Yeah.
We've turned into big topics.
We need to kill some people just to lighten the mood.
There's been a lot of questions as well, and actually I've been rubbish about trying to ask Abir them, and I'm going to try and find one question to ask him, and then I'm going to ask him if he could go back and look at the Facebook things and answer them. Let me find a question here. Sandy said, what Indian writers do you admire and enjoy?
Do you know what? There's quite a few, actually. In terms of crime, there's a writer called Ankush Sakya, who is from Assam in India, and he is wonderful. In terms of non-crime, because I should point out that, you know, crime fiction in India still isn't at the levels that it is in the West. It's not seen in the same ways that it is. But in terms of literary authors, Jhumpa Lahiri, I absolutely adore. Then there is Vikram Seth, obviously, but that's just doorstops of novels. Amitav Ghosh, I'm a big fan of, I think. And there's a writer called Amit Chowdhury from Calcutta who writes the most beautiful books I've ever read. There's a book called Afternoon Rag, which is just set of an evening in Calcutta, and it is nothing happens. Nothing happens, and it's not a huge book. It's only about that thick, but nothing happens. It's just the writing is sublime. And if I could write English the way these Indians write English, I tell you, I'd be so happy.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, I think you know, it's I try and do these things up to half an hour, and it's been impossible because we've already overrun because there's so much to talk about in this. But I think I better begin to wind it to a close. I want to thank you so much for both coming on, and it's been such a fascinating session. I was warned that Abir would be shy and retiring and probably wouldn't talk very much. And
a drink.
And also, please go and sign up to Curtis Brown Creative thing. That's the URL running along the bottom there. And I think if you add your email to that, you will get information about what's going on. Am I right there, Anna?
Yes, if you sign up to our weekly writing workouts, we will send you everything you need to know to take part. And we also you can also just sign up for our newsletters more generally via our website, because and then you'll hear about the courses, but you'll also get lots of we have a blog with loads of interviews with authors and lots of sort of writing tips blogs and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Can I just say thank you to everybody who's written in, and I'm sorry that I'm so rubbish on Facebook that I don't reply to most people, but I will make an effort.
I'll try and force him to, because normally I try and ask the questions, but it's been hard to get a word in edgeways.
I'm sorry, can I just answer Sandy's question? Sandy says, I'm from Glasgow, what team do you support? Sandy, I'm a Catholic Hindu. That should answer the question.
Yeah. There's a whole new football team needed for that. Really. Tomorrow I'll be talking to Liz Nugent and a writer who's new to me, Leslie Kelly. And then on Friday I'm talking to Ed James and N.W. Craven. We're having a sort of bloke day on Friday, which will be the first of those, talking about getting women writers in. This is the first time it's all been men, actually, because I do think in crime writing there is a lack of them. You know, there's all sorts of things. I'd love to do this all again. But in the meantime, thanks so much to Abir and Anna, and I'm going to sign off now at 35 minutes. It's a long one. Anyway, thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks for asking us on.
Cheers.